You're listening to That's Pretty Dark,
the podcast where we talk about all of the entertainment that scared us as children
and still haunts us as adults. So grab your flashlight and join us as we take a frightfully nostalgic look over our shoulders.
And under our beds.
And in our closets.
And together we'll realize, whoa, that's pretty dark.
Pretty dark. Oh man, well I can't think of a better time to talk about this than today.
Right?
Since we're getting into some witches and cats
Witches
and stuff.
and kitty cats. We are in the middle of our Hocus Pocus series.
Uh-huh.
It is Halloween.
It's Halloween.
It's Halloween.
And
yes, we had something that we wanted to address.
We got into the history of why witches are associated with Halloween in our History of Halloween series.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And the misogyny to do with women and how cats were familiars and they were evil and they were like representatives of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant, that woman's a witch because she has a black cat and all this stuff.
Right.
There was one thing I came across in my research and then I just was like, well, there's really no evidence to suggest that this is how things worked. Actually, this is incorrect. And I moved on.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's trending on TikTok.
I feel like it at least came over my For You page and I sent it to Christian.
Maybe it's not trending, but it's still out there.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to address it. There's something going around about quote unquote a mass extermination of cats.
Because of that belief in the evil world of cats.
And how killing all the cats led to a surplus of rats who were carrying bubonic plague.
Right.
And people are saying that the misogyny made the Black Death happen because there weren't enough cats to kill all the rats, which then spread the plague.
I mean, great story.
Beautiful story. I want that to be true.
Yeah, I wish it were.
I'm not saying that there aren't bits of that.
In reality.
But
it's not the whole story, essentially.
It's not the whole story. It's a great story, but witches didn't start being accused until after the major wave of the bubonic plague.
This was when people were angry and bored and had cabin fever.
This came after the collective trauma of humanity at that time.
People started being mean to one another during the midst of a global illness.
Yeah.
Sound familiar?
So it's a great story.
Not quite accurate to a timeline.
It's just not 100% accurate. But I will also say, if it stifles misogyny at all,
yeah, go for it.
I don't have a problem with that story going around.
Yeah, right? Yeah, me neither. Definitely not.
I just want you guys to know, if you're going to argue that point as this is why misogyny is bad. Did you know about this? It killed a bunch of people because it led to the Black Plague. It didn't.
It kills other people in different ways.
It does kill people, but I don't want your point to be disproven just because you weren't presenting a factual argument is all. So just look up the history.
You know what I want people to know?
Our names?
Yeah. My name's Kaylin.
My name's Christian.
And you are listening to That's Pretty Dark.
You're watching the Disney Channel.
You're watching the Disney Channel. Well, you're not watching the Disney Channel, but this is a Disney movie.
Hell yeah, it is.
We are in part 2 of our long-anticipated Hocus Pocus series.
Hocus Pocus, y'all.
And we're going to Hocus Pocus
it's time
once
to
again.
Focus that pocus on the
We
hocus.
can't believe that it's our second Halloween of That's Pretty Dark.
God, no, I can't.
And I can't think of a better way to ring in our second Halloween than with the Sanderson sisters.
Bubble.
I'm in trouble.
It's one of my most favorite things.
Oh my God. We have so much to talk about, and that is absolutely on the list. So are we ready to just kind of dive in to Hocus Pocus Part 2?
I'm so pumped about Hocus Pocus.
So last week we talked a lot about the production. We talked about the crew and the cast that made this incredible film. And now we're going to change gears a little bit, and we're going to go over some plot highlights.
Hell yeah.
However, because everybody online on YouTube watches this movie, rewatches this movie, and creates a commentary. And a lot of people, you've probably also just rewatched this movie for your October viewing, or, since Hocus Pocus 2 was just released. I thought that instead of just doing a play-by-play, scene-by-scene recap of Hocus Pocus, I would instead break some of our favorite moments and plot highlights into 3 pretty dark parts.
All right.
For your listening pleasure.
Hey.
Mature themes. That's number 1.
Okay.
Gore and goofs. It's part 2. I basically just did it for alliteration. There's more than just goofs to talk about.
You just like the 2 G's for Gilmore Girls.
That's what it was. The third section will be about the lasting impressions of the film and the nostalgia that it evokes.
Also the nostalgia.
So like I said, I'm just going to jump around jump around. And I'm going to be...
do the hanky-panky.
Yeah.
The hokey-pokey.
And turn myself around.
Let's just, you know what? Let's have fun.
Let's have fun today.
Let's have fun.
So, in order to have fun today, let's kick off our first section about the mature themes within.
We're going to have some organized and structured fun.
Yeah, that's,
right?
my favorite
and
kind of fun.
Talk about maturity.
Yes.
In children's cinema.
The entire theme of the film is obviously pretty dark.
Yeah.
These 3 witches are hellbent on killing children to retain their youth and immortality.
Yeah.
But we know that this theme has long been a fairy tale trope. Mm-hmm. We know that there are stories like this throughout fiction and literature, whether the witches want the soul or the blood or they're straight up cannibalistic.
Yeah.
This is just a common trope that we find in fairy tales. Mm-hmm. I tried to fit Hocus Pocus into the ATU, which is a fairy tale type index that we talked about in one of our previous episodes. Mm-hmm. Sorcerer's Apprentice, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
What I learned as I tried to do this, as I tried to use the ATU, is that it places far more emphasis on the hero, the princess, the Hansels and the Gretels, and the lessons that they learn, rather than the witches, the villains, and their intentions as villains.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, the best I could do would be to classify Hocus Pocus as a Type 310. It's still not great. I don't claim for it to be the perfect fit.
Yeah.
But this is the same group that, like, Rapunzel falls into.
Gotcha.
Simply because this is where most of the witches seeking immortality kind of end up. But most of those stories obviously focus on that beautiful golden hair.
Yeah.
But what I do think is cool is that David Krishner and this team of storytellers was able to put such a new spin on such an age-old theme. Mm-hmm. But if you know the ATU better, or how to use it, listener, let me know. We can retype it however we need to.
And you tell me if I'm overstepping, but there's of course, the preying on children aspect of it. Mm-hmm. There's Roald Dahl's The Witches.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I forget what year that's from, but that featured witches who directly prey on children. There's also the Children Are in Danger, quote unquote, in danger on Halloween night from, Dark Forces. And that's ancient. And then there's Elizabeth Bathory.
Yes.
Who would bathe
in the blood. I've tried to reference her unsuccessfully like 5 times on our show.
Yeah, no. We just always failed to look up who she
That's her name. I just couldn't remember it.
Elizabeth Bathory.
No, yeah, you're not ahead of me. This is kind of the theme, the idea that children are unsafe based on a witch that's seeking to take their life force in some capacity.
Yeah, totally. For the sake of
themselves
being young again.
Yeah, their own gain.
Yeah, and that was Elizabeth Bathory.
And I'm sure, listener, you can think of, many more examples of movies that we watched in this time period that have a similar theme.
Oh, yeah. Adults preying on children.
Yeah.
We went there a year ago.
Yeah, we did. We sure did.
Common theme.
The Sanderson sisters themselves have also become very ubiquitous in pop culture, just as a whole. Their costumes are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge thing now, 3 decades after the film release.
Their colors.
Their hair, everything.
Yeah.
As the narration from the actual Disney home video cassette trailer states, Winnie is the wickedest, Sarah's the sexiest, and Mary is the hungriest.
Oh, my God.
I'm right here just going to say yikes to every bit of that.
Lord have
Mostly
mercy.
The hungriest, because Y2K diet culture, joking about eating a lot.
What does that come from?
The Disney home video cassette trailer.
Jeez. It says that in the trailer.
It says that in the trailer. Mm-hmm.
Mind blown.
I'm so glad that you're reacting like this.
The sexiest and the hungriest?
I'm so glad that you're reacting like this, because I had the exact same reaction.
Yeah, yowza.
Yowza. Yeah, and just also commenting on other people's appetites or lack thereof. Just don't talk about people's appetites. Don't talk about their eating habits. Eating disorders are real.
Yeah, of course.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Bothers me so much. And the fact that that was just...
That was a point.
In the home video cassette trailer.
Yeah. Forget everybody who's pissed off about the magic spells and shit, all the witchcraft they're teaching kids. It's like teaching young girls. You have 3 options.
Yes.
You can be wicked, sexy, hungry. Hey, or all 3. That's my kind of lady right there.
But you're totally right. Like, it's missing the mark on what are we actually teaching our kids and young women especially.
Right. Yowza.
Wow.
Hey. Wow.
Hey. Wow. It was also super weird for me to hear that narrator say sexiest.
Was it like the movie trailer voice guy?
It was the Disney movie trailer voice guy.
Oh, specifically the Disney guy.
Winnie's the wickedest.
Hello.
Sarah's the sexiest.
Would thou dance with me?
And Mary's the hungriest.
No time for snacking.
They're here to have some fun and practice a little witchcraft. If they could only get it right.
Yeah, okay, I knew that you would know.
Oh, it's so awkward.
Would you like me to go on a quick tangent about who this man was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm ready to tell
There's
you.
no better time or place than right now.
I agree. So, this guy's stage name is Mark Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, he did just pass away last year in 2021.
Are we going to speak ill of the dead?
No.
Oh.
From his first trailer, which was for a re-release of Cinderella in 1977,
okay, yeah,
all the way until 2008, he was the guy. I know his voice by heart. And it's not even just Disney. He also did trailers for a lot of CBS and Fox projects, including a lot of the non-Disney animated movies of that era.
Wow.
Take that one to your local trivia night. I feel like that's a good fact to know.
I dare you.
And I feel like he had such an impact on all of us at the time because that was the voice that we knew and trusted.
It is a weirdly comforting.
It's such a comforting thing
voice
to think about. And what a career, what a legacy.
Yeah.
That's just such a wild impact to have on a generation. I hope, listener, that you know exactly what we're talking about. And
that's cool.
What's also interesting is that according to Wikipedia, he also co-owned a restaurant and a record company and a lingerie company.
Oh, wow. Hell yeah. Whoa.
So maybe it wasn't so out of the box for him to say that Sarah was the sexiest.
I mean, he's not wrong, but what a weird career. What a weird guy.
Right?
Wow. I love that. Okay.
But I'll take us back to the Sanderson sisters.
Bring it back now, y'all.
Bring it back now, y'all. So while their purpose is nefarious and arguably mature, their existence is somewhat taken for granted.
Mm-hmm.
It is explained in an earlier version of the script, in a deleted scene, and the novelization.
There's always a novelization.
And it was brought up in a behind-the-scenes interview with Sarah Jessica Parker.
All right.
That the three of the sisters had different fathers.
Yeah, that checks out.
Winifred's father was a warlock.
Okay.
Sarah's father was the village idiot.
Okay.
And Mary's father was a bloodhound who could smell children for miles. And they all had their mother in common, who they collectively adored. There's that moment when they say, they're talking about their mom, or they're reminded of their mom, and they all look down fondly, and then, mother. It reminds me of the Annie song, where they're like, "Mother dear, we know you're down there listening."
Oh, yeah.
So good.
God, so their mother committed bestiality.
Yeah, there's the bestiality of it all.
There's a lot of those stories popped up in the news during COVID. That was very popular.
Jeez, I didn't realize
Women
that.
and dogs, yeah, that became a very common thing.
I don't like that I heard that.
I'm sorry.
That you said that. I don't like that we're here.
I'm ruining everything.
No, you're not. You're not, because I did. No, we didn't even do this.
You know what? This wasn't us.
They wrote this.
This was Disney.
Disney wrote this.
Oh my God.
I don't know whether that was in the script before Disney bought it or not.
That's so funny.
And clearly they did cut it, but they did talk about it a little bit here and there. It was hard to completely erase
No, that's so
from
funny.
the lore of this movie.
Wow.
But yeah,
all right.
That's why she has all these dog-like mannerisms.
She does
that never clicked for me as a kid. She'll scratch herself. She'll bark. She barks at Binks.
Yeah, I just thought...
That's why.
I just assumed she was very animalistic, not like that she had a dog for a father.
Her dad was a bloodhound.
All right, well, anyway. At least make it a hellhound. That's a little bit better.
Hey, you know what? That would be way better.
Why is it a bloodhound?
Why didn't they say that? Why didn't they say hellhound? Because at least that's fictional.
Oh, God.
They also mention in the novel, in this introduction of the characters, that Sarah liked to lure young children, usually boys, into the woods to play, and they were never seen again.
That was always one of the eeriest things, because it has that tinge of sexuality. Like, clearly she's a female predator of some sort.
Right.
On boys in general. Just,
yes.
Doesn't matter the age.
Totally.
But like, eerie, because her whole thing was like, I'll play with the teenage boys. Like, she never, I always felt like she was stunted at like a certain age. So she's like a 14-year-old girl in a 30-year-old woman's body.
And it kind of checks out, right? Because in that time frame, right, the late 1600s, she was likely abused.
Yeah.
And I hate even saying it like that, but it's true psychologically that like she probably just didn't have the best chance, right?
It's really no wonder she turned to witchcraft.
Agreed.
I'm not going to lie.
No wonder they all did.
They all turned to magic for certain reasons.
Well, they were born into it.
Well, they were born into it.
It seems like their mom was a witch and they're,
Yeah.
But that's why Winnie is the most powerful and the most magically inclined, because her father was also magical as a warlock.
That makes a lot of sense.
I can see why they shied away from these explicit descriptions. Mm-hmm. And although they were comfortable saying virgin 9 times, it might get complex to explain to children, especially certain groups of children or more sheltered children, how and why 3 sisters might have different fathers.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was a lot.
That could have been part of the Amblin version.
Yeah. Or at least, just the version that Mick Garris originally wrote. We talked about that in part 1. If you haven't heard part 1, definitely go check that out.
Go back to part 1. Yeah, because he was a horror writer. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. He was a horror writer. So that makes a lot of sense.
And of course, the producer who conceived the whole thing also had a hand in making Child's Play. So,
yes,
they're not strangers to dark stuff.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
And that's why another reason why I think this film is so popular and enduring is because it does walk the line very closely.
Love the 80s and 90s when they just got away with so much, man. I love it.
That's why we're here.
I love it.
Literally why we're here.
Hate it, but love it at the same time.
Hate it, but love it. It depends. It depends on where on the line that you're
I wouldn't change anything. But it's really fun to shit on.
I don't think I would change anything. I think they made the right choice in taking the mentions of the fathers out of it, for example.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just so fun.
So speaking of that, this film was the first and only Disney film to use the word virgin.
Really?
I feel compelled to remind you here, again, listener, like I say all the time, virginity is a social construct. But virginity in this film is widely discussed and debated on blogs and podcasts everywhere. And I agree that it's odd that the plot of this film kind of hinged on the so-called virginity of a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot.
Even made jokes about whether he was or wasn't.
Yeah, often.
Which is still one of my favorite moments when the cop is like,
Are you a virgin? Yeah. Really?
You really a virgin?
You really a virgin?
It's like,
we'll get there.
It's genuinely funny,
we're close.
But.
Yeah, it's funny,
but.
That's kind of, everything I want to get to.
There's always a but.
And like I said, he was only 15. I personally watching it, so I was watching it, we talked about this last time as well, but I was 9, 10, 11, 12. So I was in that preteen, teen age range. To me, I always felt like Max and Thackeray were so much older.
They seemed so old.
They seemed really old, mature to me as a kid.
Yeah.
And he was 17, Omri was, playing a 15-year-old, but still.
Yeah.
To refresh your memory, in order to awaken the sisters from the curse that they cast before they were hung during the witch trials, which they also depict in the film, that's pretty dark too. They have them in the noose. They have them when they drop.
You see their feet swaying.
You see their feet hang. That was in the original concept art. You see the feet hanging and swinging in the concept art. That was always meant to be there.
I love it.
But in addition to all of that,
God, I love it.
The black flame candle, made, by the way, from the fat of a hanged man, must be lit by a virgin.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I never minded this being in the film, and I kind of, at the time and throughout the years, have attributed it to the film being the edgy, kids' 90s movie.
I can't believe Disney made this.
But it's shocking to me. Agreed.
I can't believe it.
That it passed the test.
I'm glad it did, but I can't believe it did.
And this is really the first time that I'm taking a moment to actually stop and analyze it. Mm-hmm. And in this light, I have to say it is pretty messed up.
Well, the hanging or the virgin thing?
All of the above.
Everything? Oh, got it.
All of the above, really. But I mean, not that I would change it. Like I said, I don't think I would change it.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it.
Kids grew up faster too, which is so weird. People like to say or maybe think kids grow up faster today. And we have this debate a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can really be sure.
I think it's different.
Yeah.
There are ways that they matured faster and there's ways that we matured faster. It's just, they're just different.
Right. I want to get your take on some of this, Christian.
Okay.
Across the internet, some speculate that it is implied that Allison is not a virgin because of the way that she scoffs at the suggestion that she light the candle. She kind of smiles at him. And of course, this could also just be explained as Allison being smart enough and not wanting to risk reanimating dead witches.
Yeah, she might know that
she's just smarter.
Yeah.
Also, she's a believer, and they do explore that. We'll talk about that some in the classroom, how she believes in the legends and Max does not. Mm-hmm. So she's a believer. Why would she want to risk that?
Right.
To me, that makes the most sense, but a lot of people like to think it implies that she is not a virgin.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's intentionally vague for that reason.
Exactly.
Because on the one hand, it's like, well, if you want to believe that she's just a believer and knows, no way I'm lighting that thing because it's going to work. It might work.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But if you want to sexualize her, you can.
Sure. Or if you want to make a comment about her sexuality.
Because I have often watched this and gone, she was pretty quick to
refuse,
not admit. Because also in that day, it was also, I mean, there still is a stigma against being a teenager who has sex.
Oh, we're going to get into all of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would argue that it was much heavier then than it is now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so there's also she wouldn't want to admit it in front of one, this dude, this guy,
yes,
who she kind of has a crush on, and then also his little sister. And the whole thing's very complicated.
Totally.
So I can't say one way or the other, but I have thought often, maybe she does protest a bit too much to lighting the candle. I wondered.
There are other folks, maybe some of the same folks, who ask whether Max maintained his status as a virgin throughout the entire film, arguing that he should have been affected by Sarah's song in the third act if he hadn't.
Yeah, I've heard that. I watched it again.
Or if he had rather maintained that status.
Yeah. I was trying to look at the continuity.
It's tough.
Of that night they spent together.
I've never put a lot of stock in that argument personally.
Right.
But it is an argument. Because, number one, there's no way that they managed to actually get any sleep in the position that they were in.
No, not at all.
Also, he did get pretty cozy with the pillow that he's pretending is Allison. So.
Oh, man, he totally would have.
Yeah, that was that's such an intimate moment now, knowing, just being, an adult, looking back at that, I'm like, yikes. And then Danny's right there in the closet. That's a lot to me.
That's the thing. Danny's right there with the cat. Oh, sorry, later. That's later.
No, both. In both instances, Danny's there when he's with the pillow. And yes, Danny's in the room the whole time. He's on his staircase and she's in his bed.
Yeah, the night in question, Danny's in the room.
Danny's there the whole time. Which that, to me, makes me believe that he's not.
No, because also,
not that he's not a virgin, but that he is a virgin.
That they didn't do anything.
That they didn't do anything.
They fell asleep and then they woke up in the same position.
Yeah.
And so little time passed. It went from 3 or 4 in the morning to
5.
Barely sunrise.
Or not sunrise.
Well, to after sunrise to back before sunrise, but we'll get to that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll get there.
There just wasn't enough time. Not that you need that much time when you're 15, but it just wasn't enough time. And Danny was in the room.
Yeah. My personal stance is that it did not happen.
I don't know.
Really, to me, it's very difficult to untangle all of the patriarchal misogyny from the theme here in general. Like most people that are rewatching this at our age, I was also shocked that his 8-year-old little sister discusses his sex life so freely.
And he's a virgin.
He's a virgin.
To a stranger and their mother.
She wouldn't know what that was.
Right.
What it meant.
Surely oh my God, yeah,
she wouldn't know.
Getting ahead of myself. But
it's for the sake of humor.
It's meant to be funny, right? The fact that his status as an attractive young virgin gets him mocked by grown adult men, like you were saying, the cop, air quotes. And I'm really sorry to be binary for just the briefest of moments.
Right.
But in the media that I remember watching from growing up, virginity was always presented as either just a total given for the girls or at least a net positive, right? If you're a girl, either it's assumed that you're a virgin and that's just the way it's supposed to be, or if you are a virgin, it's considered the positive option, right?
Right.
Keeping in mind that there are more than 2 genders and virginity is not real.
Right.
But with guys, it was always presented in these sitcoms, TV shows, movies.
You should not be a virgin.
Virginity was shameful.
Yeah.
It was a definitively negative thing.
Yeah.
And an embarrassing thing. And this usually begins in middle school, high school.
Yeah.
Very clearly. It's not shy. It's not subtle. That is the message.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that there were at least nods to this type of thinking in most major sitcoms.
Absolutely.
The first thing that popped into my head when I was writing these notes was the Fresh Prince episode when Will admits to Carlton that he's a virgin.
And it's like a big deal.
Yeah. There's a whole episode where Will makes Carlton feel bad because he's a virgin. Come to find out at the end of the episode, Will's just full of shit.
Yeah.
And he is too. And they're only kids. They're like 15, 16. Maybe even.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even. I don't remember.
Wow.
It's just.
Entire episodes based on virginity.
Entire plot lines.
A whole movie's based on virginity.
This whole movie. Exactly.
Wow.
It was a huge conversation.
That's unreal.
And that's a pretty crazy thing to think about when it's just simply not real anyway. So a lot of people want to call this movie feminist because they believe it centers around a virginal dude and a presumably not virginal girl.
Yeah.
There are others that think that it's more of and this is interesting to me, that it's more of a nod to the horror or slasher film trope.
Right. That
the purest person of the bunch is usually like the last to die or the one that lives.
That's the final girl.
Exactly.
It's the girl who didn't have sex. Right. So that, in typical horror cinema, you earn your death.
Yes.
So you have to do something wrong. That's either unlawful or a sin or something. And most often it's super sexy to show like boobies. So you get girls having sex and then boom, they're killed almost instantly.
Totally. This also made me think of the Boy Meets World episode, the Halloween episode, and Then There Was Sean.
Love Boy Meets World.
We're absolutely gonna cover this because it's one of my favorite episodes. It's one of their favorite episodes.
Got to.
But Eric makes the point that only the virgins are gonna live, and Sean says that he'll get as sick as you can get without actually dying.
Oh God, that's really funny.
But it's like totally just in the culture of the time, the pop culture of the time. Yeah. It was common, I guess, to discuss, which makes this movie make a little more sense.
I don't know. Like, I still think it's really funny. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm wrong.
No, I don't know. I don't know
where the line is.
There are also people that like to argue and give this movie points for being sex positive, right? In that vein.
Right.
Because the topic is discussed very openly. However, I would argue that for that to be true, it would also need to not be judged so harshly, because it is so harshly judged, the sex or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
So for something to be sex positive, it's right there in the phrase.
You're saying the movie judges.
Yes.
Gotcha.
The film is judging him for being a virgin.
That's also true.
So you can't say that that's sex positive.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you could say it's sex positive because you want him to have sex. Like that's not what it means.
Yeah,
that's
Max,
not the core of what we're talking about.
Get some. Max the Great and Powerful.
Another facet to this whole thing is that one could state that virginity was a much more common marker or descriptor in Puritan society in 1693, which was when Winnie cast her spell.
Yeah.
And even in 1993 compared to today. So she could have assumed that a younger, unmarried youth of the day.
Youths.
Exactly. We just talked about this.
Yeah.
Maybe one of those youths would be more likely to ignite the all-important black flame.
Yeah. It does make way more sense for her to cast the spell from that era.
Sure.
And then for them to make fun of that
in the 90s
curse in the 90s, because it was like
it's like they were kind of saying this is not as big of a deal as it was in 1693. But what's ironic is that it was just as big of a deal in the 90s.
Well, here's the thing. 90s where we lived, it was very stigmatized.
It was stigmatized. Yeah.
But 90s Hollywood is not stigmatized.
It was a big deal, both where we lived and in 90s Hollywood. But it was stigmatized for us.
Right.
But it was still a big deal across the board.
It was a big deal because it was used in many plot points, like you're saying. You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I don't know. Like, my thing is, I'm just shocked that this was a Disney movie.
I know.
If this had been an Amblin Steven Spielberg movie, I would be way less concerned.
Yeah, or surprised.
It's weird. Yeah, surprised. Just knowing like what can come out of not Disney versus what comes out of Disney. I'm just so shocked this was a Disney movie. I can't believe it.
I know.
Genuinely.
We've, spent a lot of time on virginity. So I'll leave you to make your own judgment calls about this, listener.
We all spent too much time on virginity.
We've all spent too much time on virginity.
God damn.
It's entirely social. It's a patriarchal device that has historically dehumanized women. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Deciding human value based on their sex life is completely absurd and completely demeaning, regardless of how you apply it. Who they have sex with or whether they've had sex or when they had sex. People have sex. We know that. Okay, that's a human trait. That's a human concept. That's fine.
Yeah.
But people are also more than sex and their sexual partners or their sexual history or anything else. That was true in 1693. That was true in 1993. And that's true today. So
that's what led to a lot of women being accused of witchcraft and dying is because they were independent
having sex.
And probably slept with one of the local priests or pastors or whatever, not priests because they were all Puritan.
Yes.
But they probably had illicit affairs with men who decided you have to die.
Exactly. You're so spot on.
Don't tell anybody I poked your hocus. You know what I'm saying?
I was reading about the bio of Salem the cat in Sabrina.
I almost referenced Salem.
Yeah, I think that we can. I think that it makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
But reading that bio, apparently in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen all of.
I've seen like at least the first season. It's good.
Yeah, I think it's a cool concept.
It's fun, yeah.
But what I read is that the background of Salem in that series is that he impregnated someone and wouldn't marry her. And the woman got angry and turned him into a cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's what I read.
I literally assumed that he was a demon familiar.
I read that there were a lot of backstories, but that was one of them.
Interesting.
Because there are a lot of Salems,
Sure. We'll do a Sabrina episode at some point.
Oh, God, of course we will.
Where we just cover all the stuff.
Love it. So all of this just tells me, Danny, we've got Max and Danny, both of them still young enough to still be coming to grips with the understanding of sexuality at all in general. Mm-hmm. And it's just messy. It's really messy.
Yeah.
Just seemingly, like you said, to be funny, to get, parental chuckles in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what about Jay asking Ice if he wants to look in windows and watch babes undress?
I know!
That's also a line in this film, by the way.
I just don't remember. I don't know how I reacted to that as a kid. I would never know what a virgin was. I would never know about babes undressing. I think it just, was enticing.
It's hard to know. Was it for the parents?
I don't know.
Was it for the teenagers?
But also, that's highly illegal.
Right.
Peep and Tom status. You can go to prison.
Yeah, not cool, Jay and Ice.
Not cool. But they're also not cool.
Yeah, true.
Don't be those guys ever.
But it's not the first time that Disney has inserted something mature to get a laugh, a smirk from the parents.
Right.
And the nostalgic lens through which we view this film makes it really hard to consider this film without those things.
Right.
So it's hard to say, like you were saying, whether it's good, bad, whether we want it there, whether we don't. There's just so much we could say. But I'm going to move us on into one of the other most famous lines from this film, because I have a personal connection.
Okay. All right.
And I think it belongs in this conversation about mature themes.
Let's hear it. Come on.
There's a moment when Danny tells Allison that she couldn't wear her costume because she doesn't have... What do you call them, Max?
Yabos.
Max likes your yabos. In fact,
he loves them.
He loves them.
That is... It's so funny.
It's one of the most famous lines from this film. It's objectively very, very funny.
It's objectively funny.
I think it's great. I'm glad it's there.
Yeah.
I had never heard this euphemism before the film.
Yeah.
Ever.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't think I've heard it since either. I had to assume that it's just common in certain parts of the country. But what I'm thinking now after looking into it is that maybe the film actually coined this.
Potentially, yeah, sure.
When I tried to research this, Hocus Pocus was all over the search results.
Yabos.
But what I also found was a fascinating 1986 New York Times article in which they explained that yabo is another word for ruffian, essentially.
Okay.
Because yob was backslang for boy around the 1850s.
Okay.
Do you know what backslang is?
I mean, no, should I?
Backslang in the 1850s-ish was a way of speaking. It was originally called butcher's backslang because it was invented to encode messages.
Okay.
It is literally speaking backwards. So they would say things like, give her the Delo team, which is old meat, backwards.
Oh my God.
They wanted to encode messages for their patrons or their customers.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't understand.
That's cool.
They just started saying words backwards.
That's so funny. So it's almost Pig Latin, but not. It's just backslang.
Exactly.
Wow.
And because boys at the time, they often would say boyo.
Yeah. Boyo is pretty common, yeah.
Therefore, yabo.
Yabo.
But a lot of sites
God.
They credit Hocus Pocus with first using the term this way. Danny didn't mean boyo when she said it. And so I think we actually might have McGarris to thank for this term.
That's so great.
But the word yabo also means unaesthetic or unappealing in Japanese. So there's also that. There's another one for your trivia night.
No, her yabos were anything but yabo, if you know what I mean.
Hey, there we go. Because Danny definitely meant breasts. We can say it. We're adults.
Tig old biddies.
But I'm going to tell you, this is something very personal. It feels very personal to admit this to a podcast, but I'm going to tell you guys anyway.
Let's hear it.
The secondhand embarrassment that my preteen, ultra repressed self felt having that happen, watching this little sister say that to this girl that this dude likes, was second to none.
Because you didn't have the yabos?
Well, I didn't have the yabos yet either. But I truly can't think of a children's film reference that filled me with greater dread.
Really? Wow.
It was all-encompassing. I can still feel it when I'm getting sweaty right now when I'm talking about it.
This is, I mean, obviously totally foreign to me.
I know that I sound, yeah. This was being a girl in the height of purity culture.
Yeah.
Is what this was. And I know, especially a preteen, I understand, listener and Christian, I understand that I sound dramatic, but watching this movie on the living room TV on the Disney Channel with my parents.
Yeah.
And they're talking about virginity and yabos. Mm-hmm. After I had only just recently worked up the courage to read the copy of The Care and Keeping of You that my mom literally slid under my bedroom door.
The Care and Keeping of You?
All the women listening to this are freaking out.
What?
All the guys listening to this are confused.
Yeah.
The Care and Keeping of You was an American Girl guide to puberty. So it talked about like buying your first bra and using a tampon. It horrified me. Absolutely, I can't express to you.
Was this like so that they didn't have to talk to you about it? They could just give you a book?
Mm-hmm. This was I don't think that was the intention behind, the company that made it.
No, that was to make money.
But in my household, that was the replacement.
That's so funny.
For this conversation.
Wow.
So little Kaylin, being 11 years old.
That's great.
I literally remember... and Carrie was, like I said, my sister, she was 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So she loved this movie. It went right over her head. Even if it hadn't, she probably wouldn't have cared. She's never been as affected by these things as I have. Yeah. Oldest daughter syndrome right here. But I remember purposefully trying to enter the room after this scene because it completely turned me off of the movie. I didn't want to watch it with my family. Wow. It made me so deeply, deeply uncomfortable that it was just a sinking, like embarrassing feeling. Thankfully, I've recovered. I've moved on. It doesn't bother me now. Yeah. But as a purity culture era, like shame-saturated girl with a younger sister who had a complete lack of a filter, it was way too real. Like for a decade in my mind, it defined this film. And I lived in mortal fear of my sister repeating that in some place that was like not appropriate. Wow. Always.
I get that though.
Another thing that we have to address, and you mentioned this earlier, is just something that wouldn't fly in the year of our Lord 2022, the sketchy ass bus driver.
Yeah.
The bubble, I'm in trouble.
I laugh every time. Oh my God.
It's of course a reference to the Scottish play, Macbeth, and the Three Witches in Macbeth.
Bubble.
But come on.
I'm in trouble.
What a line.
And then like...
The driver, he tells the sisters that the bus exists to convey creatures such as yourselves to their most forbidden desires.
We desire
children. We desire children.
He tells them he can give them children, but it might take a couple of tries.
He says, hey, that may take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'd be a problem.
It's funny.
It's just...
if not somewhat predatory.
I'm sorry. It's just the smoothest line ever. Because they're like, yes.
Right, because they're totally oblivious as well.
Yeah, but then of course we cut to her sitting in his lap.
Right.
Whose idea was that?
Yeah, I didn't have this written down, but there is a deleted scene where he asks them for a bus token or an equivalent or something of equivalent something of equivalent value or something. And Sarah says, "Can I offer you a token of my affection?" And that's when she gets in his lap.
Wow. Yeah. Was it ass, grass, or gas? Either way, rides don't come free or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was a lot.
That's so funny.
Obviously, this went over my head as a kid. It would, I feel like, fly over the heads of most unassuming kids. But this scene was so overtly sexual. Like, and it's even beyond what Sarah's already doing with the near constant use of her wiles and her yabos in the film.
Her so low cut.
Aside from all of the sexual references in this film, there are other mature themes at play also. We've also got these classic 90s bullies and tons of classic 90s insults as well. I actually hadn't remembered how big at the time saying drop dead was because I was not allowed to say it. Yeah. But I started rewatching Boy Meets World recently, like along with their rewatch podcast. Yeah. And it was everywhere. They said drop dead in the first season of Boy Meets World like 5 times. Wow. And it was apparently very common even among children at the age of 8. When Danny, I love the line. I think the scene is amazing. But Danny says,
drop dead, moron.
I feel like that's quite the hex for an 8-year-old, if I do say so myself.
I mean, that goes up there with like, I wouldn't wear that to my funeral.
Yeah, I wouldn't be caught dead.
Yeah, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing it. Like the slang from that time is just so dramatic. It's just honestly, dramatic. Yeah, dramatic. I don't think people thought twice about it, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think so either. But I was never allowed to say it.
Your parents did.
They literally thought I was telling somebody to go die. Which was also a very common thing to say. Right. Go die.
I mean, yeah, we couldn't even say like butthead though. So like, I totally get it. We were censored.
We also have some school angst in a couple of references. Yeah. Seemingly attempts for the writers to be relatable to kids because the witches reference the school as a prison for children.
It's a prison for children.
And Max says over the loudspeaker,
"Welcome to high school hell. I'm your host, Boris Karloff Jr."
Which also felt very Boy Meets World to me.
I loved it.
A very slasher, you know?
Yeah.
Another pretty dark element of this movie is we watch the witches burn alive.
They do. They go.
It's yet another time when we see fire and burning to death, which would not have settled well in Kaylin's baby brain.
We see witches hanged
hanged.
And then we see the same witches
burned
to death.
Probably just a reference, to burning at the stake.
2 very common ways people killed human beings.
And like a lot of the other things that we cover on That's Pretty Dark, there was a lot more profanity that made its way into this PG film than would probably fly today.
Damn, double damn.
There you go. There were 6 uses of the word damn, including those 3.
Yeah.
Damn, double damn. You also brought something else up to me that you thought was in the canon of the film earlier today.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Supposedly. Billy was originally supposed to cut his stitches. When he wakes up, cuts his stitches.
Yeah.
He was supposed to cut them and say, the only thing he was supposed to say was, bitch.
Wow.
But I guess that was like in the original script, maybe even in the shooting script.
It never happened.
Doug Jones has said in an interview himself that he toned that down with the mouthful that he actually says in the film.
He says,
"Wench, trollop, you buck-toothed mop-right firefly from hell."
In my Mandela effect memory, he literally says, like the first word he says is not wench. He says bitch. And then he ends with whore. But that's from my childhood memory of this movie.
I thought I heard him say whore also.
But he says hell. And I don't know where that came from.
Pretty wild.
In an alternate universe that I remember. Crazy. Do you mention when they're walking up on the Sanderson house and she says that story is there's bones of 100 children buried within these walls?
I don't mention it, but yes.
I was like, damn. I never caught that.
Pretty
freaking dark. So that's just their like, ooh, here's the legend. The bones of 100 children's skeletons are in these walls. And it's like,
and if you actually step back and think about that, it's insane.
That was just part of the like enticing element of the narrative of this movie. I mean, which I'll buy that every time.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
And hate it because it means 100 children died.
Well, I mean, obviously I don't want it to happen in real life, as I've stated,
sure.
often.
But it's part of the legend.
I love that lore aspect of it.
It's scary.
It's so scary.
That's a pretty good transition into the next section, which I called gore and goofs. I did that entirely for alliteration. There are some goofs. There are some gore. There are some goofs. There is some gore. But
sure.
Touching on some of the more gory aspects of this film, I would like to start off with some of the behind-the-scenes comments from Tony Gardner, who was the special effects makeup artist around Billy and all of his costuming, because there's a ton of stuff out there about this.
Sure. The
prosthetic makeup that Doug wears took a little bit over 2 hours to apply, including the wig, which isn't bad for that much makeup. The hands were foam latex gloves. They like extended his fingers.
Okay.
He didn't put them on until like right before they were rolling. He also wore a full body spandex suit, which that's so that you could see like his zombie skin underneath his clothes, but you wouldn't have to do all that makeup every time, which was really smart.
That makes sense.
They decided not to use contacts for Billy as a zombie because after the first makeup test, they felt like his brown eyes were the soul of Billy and they couldn't cover them up, which I think is nice.
Nice and poignant, yeah.
The actress Karen Malkus wore the headless Billy rig.
Okay.
She was about 2 feet shorter than he was, so she was in there in the rig.
Yeah, it's funny.
I just want to give credit where credit is due.
Sure.
She did a great job.
Of course.
But the head was basically magnetized to her skull cap, so they could just knock it right off. But then she could immediately search for it as an actor.
Oh my God. I did wonder how they kind of did that, because I was like, well.
It was all practical.
So yeah, they just use a different actor.
Yeah.
That's great.
All totally practical.
Very cool.
Tony Gardner is also famously quoted around different publications, including Bloody Disgusting, which is like a horror publication.
I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah. And this is all over the place. You've probably seen this fact too. I would not be surprised if everybody listening knows this, but it's still crazy.
Let's see.
They built a rig inside of Doug's mouth to put the moths and the dust in for him to be able to cough up in that scene.
So those are real moths?
Those are real moths.
Holy shit.
Which I feel like that would be really easy to fake, but I do appreciate that they really went for it.
I assumed that was, some level of CGI or some fake out something.
There were real moths in his mouth for that moment. So they would like put it in. They had a dental dam. They had like some latex, and they had like a box that they would put the moths and dust into, because none of it could get wet before the scene.
Sure.
And apparently it was like the timing of it was pretty crazy, because they had to put it in right before they would start filming, because he couldn't hold it in his mouth. And I feel like he's just a trooper.
The commitment of this guy.
Right?
Yeah, my God.
But it's like when you read about his career, when you If you haven't listened to part 1, there's plenty of
go back and listen.
Yeah, commentary on each of the actors and their careers.
Yeah.
But when you look at his career, it's like, of course he went for this. Of course he wanted to do that.
I mean, that's the thing. I always thought about that because I for a long time I wanted to be an actor too.
You've acted.
I have acted. I don't pursue it as much these days, but I always thought that to do crazy things for a movie, that's like
another level of being an actor.
It's a whole nother level of existing. Is like, I won't do dangerous things necessarily, but I'll do it for a movie. I'll hold dust and moths in my mouth just to spew it out as a zombie in a movie. Because when else, like, it's a great story.
Right, when are you ever going to get the chance to do that?
And it live in this like cinematic fame or whatever. I mean, that's crazy cool to me.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty wild. Major props to him.
Yeah. What a guy.
He was so, he seemed so nice in all the behind the scenes. He seemed really fun.
Yeah.
And he went through a lot. So props to him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could have done it personally. But a lot of his effects have lived in my mind for many years.
Yeah.
Including the way that he cut the stitches over his mouth, which were actually cut. They were glued in.
Sure.
And between takes, when he had his mouth stitched, they would have to take the glue off so that he could, eat and talk and everything else. So apparently it looked really funny because he had the tentacles
oh my God.
On his lip. But yeah.
That's so fun.
And speaking of painful things, the speed bump moment has always bothered me so deeply.
Always.
When they're in the bus, Sarah's, on the lap of the bus driver.
Yep.
They're driving. We know that Binks has just emerged from the manhole cover.
Right.
And they say, they do a bump. They say speed bump.
Yep.
As a kid, I hated it.
No, it's heartbreaking.
I still hate it. It's very hard for me to watch. Of course, he does reanimate, which they had to I didn't find any details about that, but they essentially had to reinflate, a fake cat. That scene has always... talking about things that bothered us as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sounds he makes.
That was weirdly traumatizing.
I hated how he died. I hated all
crackling,
of it. Because the bones crackle when he comes back to life.
Oh my God.
It's too much for me.
It's heavy. I think my heart broke every time.
Me too, and it still does. I watched
knowing.
I watched this 3 times for this episode, and I just hated it every single time, more and more actually.
That's a bit easier to palate these days than the next time.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get there too.
That's harder.
I also thought about the severed fingers.
I know.
From the manhole cover.
Yeah.
Oh, I think about it. For 20 years, I've thought about that. It just gets to me.
My most irrational fear is losing my fingers.
It's bad. So this probably really got to you then.
Yeah, it's really bad.
We're both holding our hands in pain.
I know, it's really rough. But yeah, having his fingers just chopped right off.
I know that the gore wasn't ultra heavy in this film by any means. I feel like it's still really...
It wasn't it stayed blood.
Yeah, it stayed within the bounds of a PG movie. Yeah, they kind of followed DJ McHale's rule, which was less blood.
And also part of their spell was biting off the tip of their tongue.
Oh yeah, that too. And Dead Man's Toes.
And the Dead Man's Toes, yeah.
They had some witchy gore in this. But I do feel like overall they stayed within the bounds of a PG movie, unlike the sexual innuendo.
Right.
And the gore and the violence that they did use was very effective. They got their point across exactly the way they needed to.
Yep.
And it stuck with me, and I feel like probably a lot of other moviegoers for many, many years.
Absolutely.
So here's where I wanted to list off some of the actual goofs, but also some of the lingering questions that we either asked when we were watching or random things I found online that I can't really reconcile into these notes anywhere else.
Yeah.
Or just that general trivia, I guess, that there just isn't a place for. But it's a grab bag.
This is organized fun.
It's guys. Organized fun. We're having our organized structured fun. Okay. Speaking of structure.
Structure?
Yeah.
I hardly know her.
Restructure.
Oh my God.
I kind of want to restructure something that I had believed about this film. Okay, this is just a thought bubble that I had.
This is a thought experiment.
This is a thought experiment.
All right.
Rather than Winnie and the sisters casting a spell that they will be reawakened when a virgin lights a black flame candle on Halloween with a full moon.
Oh, yeah. All these like parameters, like very specific
this was the
parameters.
Spell, you know, that's what I always thought was the...
Kind of, boxes the whole like potential in.
Right.
Like, by the way, it has to fit within the confines of this.
It has to fit these confines. And you would think if she wanted to reawaken, she would have just said, we'll wake up when we feel like it. Right?
In 300 years, we'll wake no matter what happens. Whether or not there's a candle or a house.
We'll be back in 300 years period. Like,
doesn't matter if Halloween still exists or not.
I feel like there just could have been an easier way for her to do that.
Yeah.
I think what she was saying wasn't necessarily part of the spell. I think it was a scry.
Okay.
It just occurred to me that perhaps maybe she was just saying she saw what was going to happen.
I see.
When a virgin lights a black flame candle on Halloween night with a full moon, that's when you'll see us again.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Because maybe there was some stipulation or some parameter to the spell where they couldn't wake themselves up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
it was part of the spell. Someone has to light the candle to bring them back.
Right.
She's just going,
that's what I think.
This is the night that we will reawaken or whatever.
I think you're right. I think that she cast a spell for them to sleep until the black flame candle is lit. That's what I think.
Interesting.
I don't think the rest of it was part of the spell.
Do we know what day it is when they are executed? Is
they
it
do
Halloween?
say in the song, it's been 300 years right down to the day.
To the day. It is Halloween night.
So, yeah, I think...
she was able to see the future and scry because it was Samhain.
Mm-hmm.
So she was... So the spirits were walking the earth. The fairies were about.
There you go.
Spirits were about. And it helped her predict the future. It helped her see the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's when witches or whoever would practice divination. She was at her most powerful. And she could divine her own fate, divine the future. And whatever spell she cast, I think you're right, she was able to see that this spell will be fulfilled in 300 years.
I might be totally wrong.
Down to the day.
That's just the way that I interpreted it this time, and it was different than how I had thought of it for 20 years.
That is super interesting. But there's also the reality that the dead can return to the earth on Halloween, but only for 24 hours or like a night or whatever.
So this movie plays into that legend a lot, which makes it really cool. Like, that's cool that they pulled this in for this movie.
Yeah. But that still is serendipitous because it would have to be on a Halloween night so that they could return.
I think that that's all really cool. Like, it's very relevant.
That is fun.
But the next point that I'd like to talk about, the anachronisms of the witches.
Yeah.
This is a kid's movie. Don't think that hard about it. But the witches go from believing that he's making fire in his hand, believing in the burning rain of death,
right,
the sprinklers, and a black river, the road.
Yeah.
They go from all these things to singing in a very distinctly mid-20th century style with no prep.
Yeah.
They understand driving permits and resisting arrest.
And she says it's just a bunch of hocus pocus.
She says it's just a bunch of hocus pocus when they weren't there. Yeah, they didn't hear him say that. You know, just something to think about. Don't think too hard, though, because like I said, it's a kid's movie. In that same vein, I have a few bones to pick regarding Binks.
He's 300 years old.
He's 300 years old.
Well, 316 years old.
Right. It isn't explained why he couldn't speak to his family when he was transformed, I don't think. All we get is that very sad little leg rub, like when he rubs his dad's leg. That makes me upset every time.
Away, beast.
Not being heard by your family, not being accepted by your family not recognizing you or not knowing you. Awful.
And he could have talked.
Right? You would think so. Not only that, but if he was there all along guarding the candle, why didn't he speak and stop Max from lighting it?
Ooh, that's a good point.
He jumped at him, he jumped on him, he scratched him, whatever.
Right.
But why didn't he say something?
Yeah.
Also, why didn't he say something to Danny and Max's mom at the party when she was holding him? And she's like, Mom, all this stuff, the cat, and then my brother's a virgin.
She says the cat can talk.
And the cat can talk.
But he doesn't speak.
Why didn't he say, yeah, I can talk?
Dude, that's a good point.
Because it wouldn't have been the same movie. I get it,
well, we wouldn't have a movie.
Could he only speak after the candle was lit? That's a question I have.
I was going to say, my only explanation is that he couldn't talk till after the candle was lit.
That's how it seems.
But I don't know.
And that, I'll accept that. I'll take that.
But he didn't seem shocked that he could talk either.
True.
You know what I mean?
Very true. And the candle hasn't been lit previously.
Right.
That's a good point. Also, and you mentioned this to me before, if no one knew that he was turned into a cat, like the teacher says, how did she know that he was turned into a cat in order to tell the legend of him being turned into a cat?
That's my problem.
Don't know.
If no one knew, then how is there a legend that he was turned into a cat? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a kid's movie. It's okay. It's fine.
No, but of all the issues, that's the biggest one I have.
The issues with Binks are tough.
That's the big, well, besides the continuity with the sunrise, but
we'll get there too.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of actual like film goof-ish things for you.
Okay.
Some of it came from that behind the scenes short that I was watching.
Right. Yeah.
Sean Murray talks about being in that early scene where Thackeray's running through the woods and he's wearing a cross around his neck. And he said in that interview that he actually lost it somewhere while they were filming that scene. And it is like, it's pretty rough and tumble. Like he's literally tumbling down a hillside. Doesn't surprise me that he lost it. But the props department came over, like freaked out that he'd lost it. Yeah. And on the spot, because they couldn't find it, they made a cross out of twigs, which is what he ended up wearing for the rest of the film. Okay. I think you actually pointed out or said something about that to me.
Maybe.
While we were watching it. Just like, is it made out of sticks? Yes, it is.
Yeah, I did actually say that, yeah. Because we referenced that in our Nightly Neighbors episode.
That's, yes, also what I was thinking of.
They have a cross made of sticks.
And it was made out of sticks because the props department did that at the last minute when they lost the real cross.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
There's a moment in the kitchen when Max and Allison are there, you can see the camera team in the reflection of one of the windows, which is not uncommon for films, especially not of this time.
I never noticed that.
But yeah, I didn't notice it either until I saw it online.
That's funny. Wow.
We also, in the kitchen, they're getting the salt. We talk about salt as apotropaic magic. It's so effective. It's like, I feel like it's more effective in these films than I see it be in other media. I don't know. Yeah. But it just struck me as how intensely effective it was. Like, don't come near me. I got the salt. It's like a weapon.
It was considered this very, very important thing.
A weapon.
Yeah.
And in that same scene, we also get the very classic kiss interruption of the 1990s in every movie, sitcom, show ever. When they're just about to kiss. You don't get the payoff. Not yet, anyway. Another really common fun fact, but I couldn't not include it because then people would be mad that I didn't include it. The fountain outside the school is the same fountain as the one from the Friends title sequence.
From Friends, yep.
Yeah.
Can't unsee.
A lot of things were filmed in that area.
Right. Where was that?
That is on the Warner Brothers Ranch.
Oh, right.
In California.
I always assumed that looked like an actual ranch, not like a city.
When you hear ranch, it's like, But no, the Warner Brothers Ranch is a bunch of different sets.
So it's just a bunch of different types of sets.
Right.
Different settings.
Yes. Wow. So is the Disney. I don't know if they really called it the Disney Ranch, but I think maybe they did. They had some sets that were like Wild West type, but then it was a lot more of like outdoor sets too.
I know like one of those was Dwight's farm.
Yes. Dwight's farm was on. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Another fact that's very common and kind of funny, it plays into exactly what we were talking about earlier. This story, this night, could not have actually taken place in 1993.
Yeah.
For one, because Halloween was on a Sunday that year, so they wouldn't have been in school.
Okay.
But
all right.
I have to say, it feels very Halloween town. I really love that the teacher is dressed as a witch and she's teaching about the Sanderson sisters in school.
Yeah.
With, legends coming from who knows where. Very mysteriously sourced because...
Yeah.
Nobody ever knew.
Unless Binks could talk and he told somebody in the last 300 years.
But you would think if he told somebody in the last 300 years, they would have helped him.
Yeah, I don't know.
It isn't quite clear to me in that scene, in the town in general, which parts of this about the Sanderson sisters are like believed to be fact or which parts are legend. I'm really not sure. In this fictional world, if they believe that the Sanderson sisters are actually people that lived in their town. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But I do like that we have this moment in the classroom where, Max speaks out as kind of a skeptic and Allison immediately defends their beliefs, basically.
Yeah.
And in any other town, the roles would be totally reversed, where the classroom, would have been flipped. They would have been the skeptics and the one believer would have been the weirdo.
Right.
But in the case of Max, that's not true.
It is fun.
I just liked how they did that. And it still felt very 90s school classroom to me. In Salem, the believers are in the majority.
I love how she called it the ancient festival of All Hallows Eve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's not even a real thing.
It's not even a thing. And Max says, we talked about this in our previous history of Halloween, but Max is like, we all know that Halloween is just made up by the candy companies.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Allison's not entirely spot on, but she's more right than he is.
Much more correct than he is. So funny.
In the same scene, Max was drawing some art on his desk, I don't know if you ever like paid attention to what it says. It's in a lot of Hocus Pocus websites.
Yeah.
But he was actually drawing like Grateful Dead art.
No, that's cool. I didn't actually never notice that.
Supposedly, Omri actually did follow the Grateful Dead for several years after this film.
Really?
I don't know that to be a fact. I saw it in some places.
He was a deadhead?
He was a deadhead. He came from a family of deadheads, and he was a deadhead himself.
Amazing.
While I couldn't confirm that he followed them, I think they did, because there was a comment or a mention about how they called him Hollywood because he was an actor, which is hilarious because they call Max Hollywood because he comes from California.
Wow.
I couldn't tell if it was a joke in the article. I couldn't tell. But,
right.
You know, they didn't necessarily address that. But we do know that Omri was a true fan of the Grateful Dead, and that was why they made the character a fan of the Grateful Dead.
That's cool. I love that crossover type stuff.
It's pretty good.
You work the reality into the fiction.
And yeah, I was about to say, and letting the actor kind of develop their character.
Yeah, that's fun.
So my next fact, from one look at the moon person to another, the moon was also not full on Halloween in 1993.
Oh, yeah?
Probably surprising to no one.
Yeah, I mean, how often is that actually a thing?
According to farmersalmanac.com,
I love the Farmer's Almanac.
The last full moon on Halloween that we had was in 2020.
Okay.
Which I remember that.
I think I remember that too, yeah. That was a good year. That was a good Halloween for me. I'm sorry.
You said that was a good year? It was like the worst
for
year.
Halloween.
But
I mean, like, it's like saying it's a good year for like a wine.
Yeah.
That was a good year.
That's true. We had a good Halloween.
Not like it was a good time to be alive. Well, I mean, it was for me.
It was a nice Halloween.
I had a great time, but that was a good Halloween.
Our introverted selves did not mind.
I'm an introvert. I like to, I was happy to be home.
We like to be alone at home.
With no obligation? My God. Cool. Dream come true.
This is called the Metonic cycle. It's on roughly a 19-year cycle, but it's often like off by a day or so because of irregularities in the calendar.
Yeah.
That's what happened from 1944, which was the most recent Halloween full moon, to the film's premiere.
Oh, really?
Until 2020.
Wow.
So there were a couple years in that time frame where the full moon fell either like the day before or day after, really close, but it wasn't on the day of Halloween.
Yeah.
Again, until 2020.
Wow.
In fact, in 2001, kids in the Central and Pacific time zone got to trick-or-treat by the full moon light, but not other kids, just based on the timing of how it played out. This is according to farmersalmanac.com.
What?
That's what it said.
That's wild.
The next Halloween full moon, if you're planning for it, listener, the next Halloween full moon isn't supposed to happen until 2039.
Oh my God.
But it will be within a day or two, like enough to like look full on Halloween in 2029 and 2031.
Wait, okay. So the last true full moon was in 2020.
Last true Halloween full moon.
But we're in Central. So we got to experience a full moon in 2001?
Enough light to be full, I think is what they're saying.
But not a true full moon.
I don't think that it was a true full moon, like it didn't fall on the day.
I don't understand how that works, but okay.
We've talked about our time zone issues here.
No, I understand time zones, but not how the moon is only full for two of them.
Yeah, I don't
versus
know.
all the other time zones.
It may have just meant like the amount of light was equivalent or something.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I do know that it wasn't full on Halloween in 1993.
Okay.
Speaking of night versus day, as we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
The whole latter part of the film has some issues in this department.
It could have just been night the whole time. It doesn't make
Honestly,
any sense. Oh
the kids woke up at 5 a.m. before sunrise, but then they engage in an entire night's worth of activities before being able to pull off a fake sunrise, which is still before sunrise.
Oh, man.
I don't get it. I mean, this is, again, probably just that suspension of disbelief where you have to just let it ride. But yeah, that has always bugged me too. Because I'm like, it was 5 a.m. when you woke up. There's no way the sun's not up yet.
Yeah, I mean, like, once you start seeing the light of the morning, within minutes, it's bright outside.
Yeah, the sun comes up.
They go another, like, 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Enough time for all the children of Salem to be summoned by a magical song and walk all the way out to the country where the Sanderson sister house is. That takes hours.
That takes hours. And when you think about that as well, all the kids, like some of those kids will be getting up for school.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Doesn't make any sense.
The time frame doesn't line up for me. That's probably my biggest gripe. I can forgive the witchy stuff. I can forgive Binks, but that's the worst one for me is the timeline just really doesn't. They compressed it too much, or really they lengthened it too much. So that wraps up my second section. And now we're moving into my third section, which is lasting impressions, the culture and nostalgia of Hocus Pocus.
Let's do it.
Beyond just teaching a generation of kids what a virgin is,
this
film lives on in the hearts and minds of so many of us, which is evidenced by the millions of dollars that it brings in every single year over the last decade.
Yep.
The franchise of this film, the impact of this film, the reach is still growing. We are now growing up. We're showing it to our children. The legacy is continuing.
I'm showing it to my cats every year.
Oh, me too. Same.
Sphinx loves it.
Buzz, every single time I've watched it, he gets very upset when Binks is rubbing his dad's leg.
Yeah?
Buzz goes to the TV, and Phoebe goes to the TV a lot, so it wasn't as impressive on her part, but Buzz got up from his seated position to go and investigate because he heard a cat in distress.
So sad.
So sad. The trick-or-treating scenes from this film come to my mind instantly when we think about Halloween of the 90s.
It is quintessential.
It's quintessential. They were able to somehow capture not only the Wild West, candy as currency, latchkey elements of 80s and 90s trick-or-treating, but also the delight and the spirit of the thing.
And there's also that weird pockets of time where there are kids, like a lot of children around. And then there are the moments where you get to the house where no one's around.
Yeah.
And it's like this weird emptiness of trick-or-treating because you're out, you're alone. You get on the street where it's quiet. All the other kids are off on the other streets in your neighborhood, but the houses are still all lit up. It's getting later. It captured that sense of isolation.
Yeah, it did it all.
You're on your own for a night.
It really depicted the social mecca that Halloween created for children. Just one night every year, and the superstition that it would also evoke.
Yes.
It was also really cool to me to see the real, quote unquote, witches right alongside all of the costumed children, which further lends to what you were talking about, that the veil is thin feeling.
Yeah.
They're right next to each other. This is all happening right together.
Right there.
They're all pretending and dressed up and playing. Everyone at the party is pretending, dressed up and playing, when real magic is right at their doorstep.
It's right there. The danger is just outside. And you're all pretending and frolicking around, but the witches are walking among you.
Absolutely.
The dead are walking among you and you don't even know it.
I also really like that Danny mentioned that the rich people would probably make them drink cider or bob for apples.
And they both nod let's do it.
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
Oh, it's so fun.
I had two other notes that I wrote down when I watched this part of the film. Number one was, why haven't I done more calming circles in my life?
Right?
I feel like you and I could do a very effective calming circle.
We wouldn't be able to take each other seriously, though.
But we could think of the things that make us calm or happy, and it would be, we could get zen with a calming circle.
Calming circle with two people. It's a calming line.
The other thing that I laughed a lot about was the fact that the witches, were afraid of the angel.
Bless you.
I feel like, to me, that hits so much differently these days because of, in part, my religious trauma, but also in part, the Halloween history that Christian has been teaching us.
Absolutely.
And the way that, Christianity and Halloween have not always been enemies, the way that a lot of us think of them today.
Very true.
I will also say that despite the maturity of a lot of the themes, I do remember really appreciating the layer of romance that this film had, the way that they depicted the 90s crush, the way that Max kind of zeroed in on Allison in the classroom and shot his shot in front of the teacher and the kids and God and everybody.
God and everybody, yeah.
It's just really funny to me looking back. It was a very 90s movie moment.
It made him look super confident and cool. It made him the kind of guy that I hoped I would be growing up.
And I always liked when she was trick or treat and gave him his number back.
Yeah, it was a total prank.
And I still laugh every time Danny protests going to the witch's museum and Max tells her, come on, this is the girl of my dreams. He's like, come on, you gotta work with me here. And Danny's like,
so take her to the movies like a normal person.
Danny!
It's just so good. And then the way, you were talking about how she blackmails them with the Peter and Wendy costumes with tights. Her delivery in that scene is absolutely perfect.
Oh, she
you cannot change
nails that scene. No, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
I love how the law that comes from her new school friends at school. Because,
yes.
he went to school and made no friends.
Right.
She went to school and made all the friends.
All the friends.
So for her to be
her
like,
friends at school
listen,
told her.
my friends said that place is bad news. Like, we shouldn't go. Like,
That's right.
my friends know better than your grown-up 16-year-old friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like that take on, like,
I like that too.
We kids know what we're talking about. You guys are idiots.
Yeah.
Because kids always
and
know.
the juxtaposition of just the way that Danny went to school and was socially fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
versus Max, who's like, I miss my friends. I miss my home. And she's like, this is your home. Get used to it.
Yeah. The whole dynamic is so fun.
It's great.
Everything about it.
Yeah, even everything before they wake up, the Sandersons, to me, is still so good.
And even like you were saying in part 1 about how originally it was going to be just like 12-year-olds against these really super dark witches and this dark story, and how he said older kids wouldn't necessarily get into Halloween the way the 12-year-olds would. They used that to their benefit in this final version where he's older, he's all, I don't get into Halloween, I don't want to do this stuff anymore, I'm not a kid. They use that to their benefit as a plot point to sell, I'm not scared, I'll light the candle, who cares? Very true. They're in that in-between, that liminal space.
They're in the liminal space of, we're too cool to care about Halloween, but we still kind of like it too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun stuff.
There is actually another deleted scene in that section of the movie where Max is going door to door. They have like a montage of him explaining his costume to everybody.
Okay.
And he tells somebody something different every time.
That's so funny. I always wondered.
I can't remember all of the things that he says, but he tells his parents, I'm a rap singer.
I'm a rap singer, which is singer is so funny.
Whoa, I love the costume.
Yeah.
But what are you supposed to be? A new kid on the block?
And then Danny tells the kids, for your information.
He's a little leaguer.
Whoa.
And I was always like, where'd that come from? I love how they call him a new kid on the block.
Are you a new kid on the block?
That's so relevant for that time period.
Oh, for sure.
God.
Definitely. But yeah, there are several other things that he says.
I've got to see this.
It isn't actually, I don't know that they filmed it. I'm not positive.
Gotcha.
But I saw concept sketches for it.
Oh my God.
Something else that you and I talked about, I also found it surprising that their parents didn't want to take their kids, or at least Danny, trick-or-treating on their first Halloween in a new city.
Oh my God. Yeah, we were both like, wait a minute.
And they like Halloween. It's not that they don't like Halloween. So like, why?
But they've only been in this town for a few days.
It seems like a few days. That's another bone I have to pick, is the fact that Max's room looks so lived in.
Oh, that's true.
Yet they're still like unpacking downstairs. And then he goes into his room, like his fish are settled in. He's feeding them.
Well, I guess the first thing he would do would be to unpack his room. I mean,
there's posters on the walls. No, you're right. But it's just like, it's really lived in.
I just have a problem with the whole latchkey aspect of them
going
with their
parents
kids.
Don't want to take their kids.
It's a new town. They don't know where to go. Like, I don't know.
You're right.
I don't know. The 90s was a different time.
And he's even telling Danny to go by herself. And she says, it's my first time. I'll get lost. Like,
right.
Not only is it would it be your first time going alone? You just moved here.
First of all, let Max go and do his own thing. But mom or dad has to go with Danny. Like, you have to.
You would think so.
And one of you has to stay home and give out candy because you have to establish yourself as a cool house in the new neighborhood.
Honestly.
You can't go to the party.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You don't get to.
It's a lot.
You don't get to.
The older that I have gotten, I will say, the more I at least understand, because we talked about this a little bit in your history of Halloween.
Yeah.
In American society, the way the holidays were treated in this era, and probably for a lot of decades before, was basically that children would stay home or would do their like small supervised activity, and then the real party would start when the parents were able to go out at night.
Yeah.
They treated New Year's Eve very similarly on a lot of sitcoms. The first year that you could like leave the house on a holiday and like attend a party or have a night out was like a rite of passage.
Yeah, well, you're right. Like even in Stranger Things, when Nancy is given Jonathan, she's giving him a hard time on Halloween. She's like, so trick-or-treating's over at what, 8? You'll be home by 8:30,
That's true.
like
you're
whatever
right.
on your own. Like the parents, they'll be home by 8.
Yeah.
Then you can go to your town hall party.
Yes, that's so true. They would be home. They could definitely do both.
They could do both.
But then again, just like we were saying with some of those other points, it wouldn't be the same movie.
But then again, way later, once the witches are out and about doing their thing, kids are still roaming the streets trick-or-treating.
Yeah, that's true.
How late is that?
Yeah, we don't know.
It is Salem. They go hard for Halloween. But yeah, you're right.
But I will say that the whole thing, from Danny begging Max to go with her, it made me wish so much that I had, and it was not the first time that I wished this as a kid, but I wanted so badly to have like a cool older brother
Oh, yeah.
that would like take me places and defend me, you know, and somebody to defend the way that Danny does.
I had my older sister.
You had older siblings, and that's nice.
She took
I just
care
have
of me.
never experienced that.
Yeah.
All my friends were older than me. I was that kid that just like, I always fit in with the older kids.
Yeah, me too.
But even still, I would have loved to have had an older brother. That was something that I wanted all my life.
Yeah.
And the 90s movie sibling bonding with sentimental soundtrack is elite in this film. There are so many instances of it.
Yeah, it's top
I think
notch.
it's really great. But yeah, for me, I was the oldest sister in the stranger danger misogynistic world, which was not as conducive to solo trick-or-treating or party going or any of those things, or even sentimental bonding, as it turned out.
No, that's hard.
But speaking of parties, I just feel like the Halloween parties in this movie were top-notch.
Oh, yeah.
We had Allison's parents, who had this like totally decked out period piece of a soiree at their mansion, which is a landmark in Salem, by the way, the house that they used.
Yeah.
And when we were watching it, because they're all in like colonial attire.
Yep.
I think when we were watching it, you were like, what's the theme? Colonization?
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
We also have Mr. and Mrs. Satan, and they have their horror-themed night in, where they are very into handing out candy. At least the husband is very into handing out candy.
Right.
And they're enjoying their Halloween as well. They're doing it up. They're doing it big, even though they're staying home.
Yeah.
But I absolutely would have kicked those witches out of my house way sooner than they did.
Oh, I never would have invited them in.
Yeah, they never would have come into my house. Are you kidding?
You don't get to come in my house.
I'm very much team get out of my house.
I don't care. I mean, I know it was this like,
No.
It's like, hey, you're adults. You're in costume. We're all adults in costumes. We're having fun. Come inside, have a drink, meet the missus.
Yeah, for him.
Have a cuppa.
Meet the missus.
Yeah. But it's like, I get that as like a funny like trope, but
Sure.
I would never
It's
do
not
that.
realistic to my life.
But also, I don't invite anybody in my house unless you're there to do a job.
Yeah. Even people that I know, I really don't invite them into my house. Of course, we also have this big, citywide town hall, dance hall, Halloween party for all the grown-ups.
It's ruined Halloween parties for me because that's what I want.
I know.
And it's never that.
It's never that. There are
It's
a
not
lot of
that.
90s instances of that. There was a Dawson's Creek episode where they had a Halloween party on set. Dawson was the director's assistant. And I was always like, why can't I have that?
God, I know.
I had some fun Halloween parties when I was growing up. We had some friends that liked Halloween, and I had, some decent Halloween parties that I can recall. But even still, I just feel like this kind of Halloween enthusiasm doesn't exist anymore. We like it as a society. We like it. But I don't know if we like it as much as they like it in this movie.
Not to go full theme. Like today, I feel like the people I know who do this, they wear extravagant costumes, but then the whole point is just to get super drunk.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
And that's like fine if you want to do that, but that's still not my thing.
It's not really, it's not my thing either.
I want to like enjoy it and like remember.
I thought about, how kind of the age of the party has changed post-internet and pandemic.
Yeah.
But the place to be is no longer a place that you have to be, at least not everywhere or in all parts of the world
Right.
or the country. And it's never the place to be for me because, like we said, I'm introverted and chronically ill, and I don't party. So it's just not really a thing. But it is really cool to see these depicted and to imagine that ideal Halloween party.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah.
I also want to ask your question here,
Oh, no.
Christian.
Okay.
No. There's a big question that you have about the film. Why was Max and Danny's mom completely unsurprised
Oh my God.
to see her daughter at the grown-up party?
This has confused me. When I was a kid, I did not realize that was her mother. Because it's so convoluted how she responds and how she reacts to her own daughter.
It is weird. It's all weird.
At this
and then
adult
she's like,
party.
who are you supposed to be or whatever Danny says. And the mom says, Madonna, don't you think?
Yeah. I'm like
the mom is like trying to get validation from her 8-year-old daughter about whether her boobs look like Madonna's.
never crosses her mind that her own kid is at this party where there are no kids allowed. Like even when they run inside, the guy at the door is like, "Hey kids, you can't go in there."
Oh, I was gonna say that too. Yeah, they're like, no kids, like no kids.
She's not even like, "Honey, oh my God, are you okay?" What?
Neither is his dad though. Really, he does.
Well,
he says,
he at least goes, "What's wrong? Is Danny okay?" But like,
yeah,
I don't know.
After he calls Allison a charming young blood donor. But yeah, he at least has the wherewithal to be like, "What's wrong? Is Danny okay?" And as soon as Max says yes, he turns it off again.
Maybe the joke is that they're like drunk.
That is exactly what I was going to suggest.
Yeah.
Also, how did I and you and all the other kids watching this inherently understand Danny's response, her line? Because her mom's like, "I think you've had too much candy," which, no, you've had too much alcohol.
I haven't OD'd.
I haven't OD'd, Danny says. I knew exactly what that meant, even as a kid.
Yeah, for sure.
So funny. But like you just said, I do think that they were all incredibly intoxicated.
Probably.
If not, maybe trying to imply that there were some other extracurriculars occurring at this party.
It kind of seemed like because they didn't seem drunk, but they seemed
maybe
on something.
Ecstasy, I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
But it seems
Probably
more than just alcohol. But they're at the very least, everyone from their parents to the costumed cop and his lady friend, all of them seemed very intoxicated throughout the night.
Well, yeah, because they're outside of a liquor store.
Yeah.
But it also plays to that like obliviousness of the adult.
Oh, I was going to make that point too. It's
Yeah.
literally the next sentence that I have.
Okay, sweet.
Well, number one, even the drunk energy confused the hell out of me as a kid because nobody around me drank alcohol, or at least not around me or in my presence. So
our parents didn't drink.
Right, exactly.
So
yeah, I'm sure there were plenty of kids that made total sense to.
They probably totally got it, but
I didn't personally.
Yeah, we didn't have that.
Like you said, it was another classic example of the parents not believing the kids, not listening to the kids, dismissing them completely.
Yeah.
That is so unsettling. That's the scariest part of this to me. Like I said, when we referenced this before, anytime that you're in a situation where you feel like everybody around you should understand the peril and the danger, and nobody's listening.
That's just nightmare status.
Brutal. And that really struck me every time I watched it this time, how they're all three like, "No, help us." And Max is on stage like, "You don't understand. Your kids are in danger." And at first, everybody's concerned, but then they play it off like it's part of the bit. And it's,
thanks to Bette Midler.
I know. When he's thinking on her feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of reiterates that 90s clueless parent vibe from a lot of sitcoms and a lot of
oh my God.
films.
The number of nightmares I had where you needed to go tell an adult something and they just didn't listen to you, didn't understand what you were saying, or you couldn't speak at all.
It was a huge
horrifying
thing for me in my dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
It was also much easier for me to wrap my head around musical hypnosis than being drunk completely. That made sense to me instantly. But the forced dancing of everyone was always super spooky to me. It felt very Beetlejuice, But
it's also that classic fairy folklore. Taking somebody to this enchanted ball.
Yeah,
and dancing till you die. Like she says, dance till you die.
Dance till you die.
That's pretty dark.
That's pretty dark.
But that comes straight from folklore.
And you know what else it made me think of? I think I mentioned to you. Was the dancing plague of 1518.
Yeah. Yes, the dancing. Hysterical dancing.
This is when hundreds of citizens of Strasbourg, which was in the Roman Empire, which is now in France, danced uncontrollably and seemingly unwillingly for days on end. It lasted about 2 months before it ended, pretty much as mysteriously as it began.
Yeah.
The podcast Lore did a really great episode on that. If that sounds interesting to you and you've never heard of it, it's pretty wild.
It's incredible.
But I do wonder if that wasn't maybe part of the inspiration for it, because I've seen that hypnotized dancing trope a few times.
Probably. I'm sure it all factors in.
One of the leading theories, by the way, is that was because of a fungus that had grown on the grain in the area.
Yeah.
But then there are also a lot of reasons that that's been debunked.
Yeah, that's the ergot poisoning that they also said caused the Salem witch trials. It didn't.
No.
It's not true.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah.
In this vein, one of the most lasting elements of pretty much any film for me is the music.
Yeah.
I put a spell on you.
So I thought I would break down some of this I put a spell on you scene using some of the insight from the Rap article and some of the behind the scenes features.
Hell yeah.
Of course, it made sense for the film to take advantage of a Grammy-winning lead actress. And of course, it's also a Disney movie, so
you have to have a musical
Disney
scene.
likes musicals. This makes sense.
Yeah.
Mick Garris, the writer that I talked about before, He said that the number was added to the film specifically for Bette Midler. You want me to send you this quote?
You can if you want to.
It's just a quote. I'll let you guys hear Christian read. It's not as fun as the readings that he makes me do, but I'll send him a couple quotes.
How can you make a movie this playful with Bette Midler and not have a musical number? Especially, I Put a Spell on You. Plus, you have a director who was previously a choreographer and had done music videos and was well known for his musical work coming on board to direct. How could you not do a musical number with Bette Midler?
That's what I'm saying.
You'd be a dumb idiot turd to not do that. That was my addition.
Good job. Good job.
I don't think he said that, but I just,
You just wanted to ad-lib.
I improvised.
David Krishner, the producer that we talked about in part 1, he wasn't sold on the scene, and he thought it might take audiences out of the story. But I feel like I've seen musical scenes make much less sense, like in the case of, I don't know, Ferngully. And I still appreciated them, so I was very okay with it.
All Dogs too, though.
All Dogs as well. Totally, totally. Musical numbers don't always have to make sense. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I think in this case, it worked very much.
It makes sense to me, though. Like, there's already music, there's already a band. She just sort of commandeers the whole thing using magic, right?
Yeah, which I think is cool.
That's dope.
I always wish that I could do the same thing. Thora Birch, who played Danny, she mentioned that there was some drama around like obtaining the rights to the song and modifying it enough, but not too much, wanting it to still be recognizable. It was originally written and performed by Screamin' Jay Hawkins in 1956.
It's part of my Halloween playlist.
Yeah. Probably you and lots of other folks.
Yeah.
Nina Simone did a cover of it in the 60s.
It's also a really good Creedence Clearwater version.
Oh, yeah. That's another one.
Yeah, it's really good.
And Kenny Ortega really pushed for the scene, and David Krishner ended up being really glad that they added it.
Yeah.
Thora also told the Wrap basically that it was the best Halloween party ever, which does not help my FOMO in the least. She said nobody was miserable. And usually in situations like that where you have a big crowd or a lot of extras and you're doing a big sequence, it can get miserable. But she said she didn't hear one single complaint. And it did kind of have a real party atmosphere. And hearing Bette Midler sing and seeing, hearing that song, she said it really made you want to dance.
Wow.
So I think it's cool that they had such a good time filming it.
Reminds me of the birthday party in Tower of Terror.
Yeah, me too. I thought about that too. But unfortunately, not every impression of this film was great. As I mentioned in part 1, it wasn't really a success until 9 to 10 years after it came out.
Right.
And I talked a little bit about the reception, but I promised that I'd say some more on that, so I'd like to revisit it really quick. Something kind of funny that I learned from this article in The Wrap, kind of everybody while they were making the movie felt like they had a hit on their hands, which is not a very common thing to hear in behind the scenes interviews, because most people go out of their way to be humble or something.
Yeah.
Like in most behind the scenes interviews, you hear actors and crew where they're like, I had no idea about how successful it would be, and wow.
Yeah.
But it seemed like Bette Midler kind of mesmerized everybody with her talent. The sisterhood that the witches had was very captivating. The kids were so like precocious and they were on point and they nailed their dialogue and everything. And they all felt like they were onto something. Nowadays, Bette Midler regularly references Winifred Sanderson as one of her favorite roles, if not her very favorite role of her entire career.
Wow.
But it doesn't seem like she always felt that way. Both David Krishner and Thora Birch talked about how they didn't think she was especially thrilled when the film was released. I can send you another quote real quick.
Okay.
So David Krishner in this Wrap article said,
when it first came out, she really wasn't particularly supportive of it. It got bad reviews, and I think she may have been a little embarrassed. And maybe she was. This is just me saying this. Maybe she felt embarrassed that she'd been over the top in the film. But I think what she didn't realize was how brilliant she was.
And I agree, David Krishner.
Yeah.
I feel like she's been an enduring character almost entirely because of the life and the energy and the whimsy that Bette Midler brought to the role.
Yeah.
I think some of it was on the page, but for the most part, I really think we can attribute that to the way that she played the character.
Yeah, totally. I can see being like really proud of something, and then when most people don't really agree with you, you're kind of like, oh,
what?
Well, I guess I was
Yeah, exactly.
wrong.
I guess I was wrong. Yeah, you have that moment.
Yeah, I overplayed that. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly.
You start second guessing
and I think that's what
everything.
she went through.
Yeah.
You start to second guess it when you go that hard for something and it isn't received well. He felt like she understood something that the critics didn't understand.
Yeah, right.
So Vanessa Shaw said something similar about the film.
on the set, I feel like we all thought it was going to be something. I felt like we had the right recipe for a hit because originally the movie was supposed to be kind of scary, and they changed it to be more comedic to utilize the actors they hired. We all just enjoyed the sisterhood. So that felt like, oh, this is going to be a fun, comedic, kind of tongue-in-cheek Halloween movie that everybody will enjoy. And it didn't happen. Nobody really got it. That sucks.
Right? And for them all to feel like they had it. And then for it to just kind of flop.
To feel like you all blew it, like, sucks.
Yeah, exactly. That sucks.
Jeez. Because this is also coming out of the Disney Renaissance.
Yes.
Too.
This is on top of the Disney Renaissance. They can do no wrong.
They're like, we can't lose. This is great. We're all going to be so famous. And then
it wasn't.
And then they're like, oh.
I have one more quote about this, mostly just because I do find it so fascinating that they really felt strongly like they were doing something good.
Yeah.
And then it just wasn't what they anticipated. So the psychology and understanding that is interesting to me.
Right.
But I have one more quote from Jason Marsden.
I mean, I can take myself away from a project and be like, oh, yeah, well, I could see why this didn't land, but it's a good movie. It really is. It hits all the spots, it's sinister, and it's funny, and the gals are fantastic. And Kenny Ortega did a great job. It's very unique. It was the first, Halloween-centric family movie ever, I think.
Yeah, that's right, Jason.
Damn. Yeah, the dude nailed it.
And I mean, this status as the first Halloween family-centric movie is pretty well true. Granted, Double Double Totally Trouble did come out the same year. Obviously, audiences today love hopping into the time machine and indulging it with all of its eccentricities and all of the energy that they brought to the film.
Yeah.
I feel like the pacing of the film is really unique. Like we talked about, the fake outs were really fun, and it was kind of a cinematic trope that I hadn't yet gotten jaded by or I wasn't accustomed to when I was a kid.
Right.
For example, when Max downs the potion in the cemetery, as a kid, I was shocked. I was like, how is he going to get out of this one?
Oh, no.
I didn't, I think they did a really good job with a lot of that, even from a cinematic point of view.
Right.
The storytelling point of view, I should say.
Right.
It also has the classic early 90s make kids weep status when Cat Banks dies and his soul is freed at the end.
It's so
sad.
sad.
Obviously I was always glad for him, but damn. Dead animals will never not hurt our Zennial and Millennial souls.
Never. The meow?
Oh,
the sound he makes?
When he dies.
Yeah.
I cannot.
It's so sad.
Dead cats. I can't do dead cats, y'all.
I think of my sweet boys every time.
We love our kitties too much.
They're too sweet.
So, listener, we have arrived at the point in this episode where I'd like to discuss some of our opinions on Hocus Pocus 2. If you would not like to hear this, if you haven't watched it yet,
spoiler
please
alerts
skip ahead.
Across the
Big
board.
spoiler alert. Don't listen if you don't want to know.
Yeah. Hocus Pocus 2.
Yeah, if you stuck with us this long, I'm sure you probably wouldn't mind hearing some of our initial brief thoughts on Hocus Pocus 2. And like we said, skip ahead if you're not into it or if you haven't seen it yet or you don't want to be spoiled, etc. So like we've been telling you, Christian and I rewatched Hocus Pocus back in September. That kind of kicked off our whole spooky season.
Yeah, it did.
We ate Halloween sugar cookies and we talked all kinds of smack and it was really fun.
It was so much fun.
And we also watched Hocus Pocus 2 together after we finished recording on the night that it premiered.
Yup.
And while we are so infinitely grateful to have it, we're so glad that they got back together. We're so glad that that happened. And we love that we live in an age and an era where this is done.
Yeah.
And you get to have that magic of reuniting characters that you love.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
It was fun.
And we also we view it with the same nostalgic license that we do the original as well. We try to.
Right.
But we both kind of agreed that the nods to the original film were probably our favorite part, which makes it probably not a cinematic masterpiece.
Technically, yeah. If the best parts are just references to the original, it's technically not good. It was still fun. I'm glad it happened. I mean, I'll watch it again, and I think I will enjoy it. Yeah, on a second watch.
Sure,
because I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not
I might
putting
enjoy
as
it
much,
more on a second watch.
You know,
because we put a lot of stock in it.
Yeah,
and pressure. Exactly.
Really thought it was going to be something just magnificent.
I won't speak entirely for Christian, but for me personally, I would have really preferred if they had brought back Kenny Ortega as the director, especially after doing all this research and watching all the behind the scenes stuff.
For sure.
Everybody, they loved him so much as a director, and he did, get these amazing performances out of these kids, and it was just his movie so deeply.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen what Hocus Pocus 2 would look like if he had directed it.
Agreed.
And we also talked about how simple it would have been to bring the kids back, even one of them.
Yeah.
And for a cameo.
Yeah.
And from what I've read, it seemed like Thora may have had like a scheduling conflict.
Right.
But the new director for Hocus Pocus 2 simply didn't ask Omri or Vanessa to come back, which I thought
doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it was just a bad move, objectively, to me. I think she said in an interview that she felt like audiences would have been angry with her or with them at the film if they brought back characters who had been leads to be, in small moments.
Yeah.
And to that I say, I feel like the entire concept of a cameo is just totally lost on you.
Yeah, I feel like she just didn't understand it.
I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't do that.
I feel like that's her excuse for wanting to make her own movie.
Maybe. And that's okay. That's well and good. That's fine.
But it's not if you're remaking a classic.
Most people that I've spoken to, their biggest gripe is that they didn't have any cameo or anything with any of the kids.
They needed something.
So Christian had a really good idea for like a simple, 30-second scene.
Oh, yeah.
With Max.
Yeah, it was basically like literally just because they're flying through the sky. They're doing a lot of laughing. All you have to do is like have him just walking around and he hears her echoing laugh and he just kind of goes, Max, you're hearing things again.
Yeah.
and he just kind of shrugs it off and walks away.
I have even one better, or maybe like an...
Oh, yeah?
Like
your idea's better than mine? Go ahead.
No. I think it could be like he was putting his kids to bed.
Oh, yeah.
And then he hears it on the wind, or they hear it, and they're like, did you hear that, Dad? And he's like, no, that's just Hocus Pocus.
Oh,
like,
perfect.
It would have been...
Perfect.
Oh
my God.
Just perfect.
Did they even say the word Hocus Pocus in this movie?
I don't remember.
In the second one?
Now that I think about it.
Oh my
but like
God.
it could have even been his and Allison's kid or something if they wanted to.
Oh, they could have both been there. That would have been
do
sweet.
2 birds with 1 stone.
I mean, that's how you do it.
And not only that, but it would have also been really poignant because that's how the whole thing started, was David Krishner and his story to his kids.
Yep.
I think it would have just put the perfect button on the whole franchise.
I know that they wanted to do the whole, they wanted to change up the kids, the characters, who it is that encounters these witches.
And that's fine.
I get that they wanted to
totally
make it totally fresh and brand new. But that's how you cameo the older actors.
Yeah.
It's their kids who awaken the curse.
Or that.
Once again.
You could do that, yeah.
Maybe.
I feel like there are films that do that.
Yeah,
definitely.
and then they're just there. They're peripheral, but they're part of the movie, and it's fun.
I also personally would have really liked to see more about Trask and his family and the legacy and the actual Salem. They didn't really tie up that storyline super well, in my opinion.
Right.
And I feel like it would have been fun to see more of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they didn't go into that very much.
Yeah, I don't know. They introduced a bunch of new concepts to the new one that don't really apply to the first one. I felt like was kind of strange.
I did think it was funny. They had 2 actors from Veep when Kathy Najimy was on Veep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I
mean, there were elements that were really good.
Yeah.
Really, really funny.
Yeah.
And Carrie your sister liked it.
My sister liked it.
She thought it was
there are
great.
people that have enjoyed it. It was nice to see the flashbacks, obviously.
Yeah.
The sisterly bonding was nice. It was nice to see Winnie have an emotional moment. They carried a lot of that sentimental sibling stuff through from the first movie. That theme was still there.
Right.
But they just applied it to the witches, which was nice. And I know it was also fun for everybody to see the witches interact with even more modern developments.
Right.
Because the world has changed a lot since even 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And the sociology nerd in me really liked that, being confronted with that.
Yeah.
The amount of change that has occurred pre and post internet.
In just 30 years.
In just 30 years.
Yeah.
So I thought that was nice. Overall, my opinion of it was that it was just very polished, very 2022 Disney.
Yeah.
But we are in 2022 and it is Disney. So.
But even the pacing was weird. It just didn't make any sense.
That's also true. We talked about that afterward. The pacing, I felt like it was off. And the pacing was unique in the original. And I feel like maybe they thought they had license to kind of do that again.
I guess so.
But I didn't feel like it worked. the way that they chose to do it personally.
And you told me, I didn't know this, but there was a deleted scene where they do go into a grocery store in the original.
In the original, yes, in the original film, there's a deleted scene where they go into a grocery store. So they were like, let's go back to that,
I guess. Use what we didn't use before. Yeah.
Yeah, when they went into the drugstore. Overall, yeah, I understand we can't live in the 90s forever. And I can accept that they didn't make this for me.
Right.
They made it for me, but they didn't make it for me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with other people getting a shot at things. I'm glad that they had a really, they had a female-focused cast, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. They had a lot more opportunities and roles for people of color than the original film, which is important and great.
Yes.
Totally cool with all of that. I don't know. It wasn't made for me, and I can leave it at that and be okay with it, I guess. I also, we talked about this, and I had to wonder, they only had to wait one more year to just release it on the 30th anniversary.
Just one more year. Why the rush?
It was 300 years between, like there was all these threes.
Yeah.
But instead they come out with Hocus Pocus 2 29 years
29 years.
The original. I just don't know why. It just
doesn't make any sense. Why this year versus next year? It doesn't make any sense to me.
And I mean, I understand they're older and you don't ever want to risk like not having a key player around.
Sure.
But I feel like they still could have built up to a release next year.
You still could just, you know what? Go ahead and film it, release it next year.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Tell us, listener, how you felt. Send it to us in an email or a message so you don't spoil it for, the other folks out there.
Yeah.
But we'd like to hear.
We would.
What you think.
We want to hear it.
So back to your regularly scheduled programming. I will just wrap us up for our 2-part Hocus Pocus series.
Man.
This film has stood the test of time, or maybe more accurately, it has aged, for the most part, well, like a Sanderson sister.
Drinking the soul of a child.
It has consumed the souls of many children, such as you and I.
Man.
In 2018, Disney and Freeform hosted a 25th anniversary celebration for the film. There were fans and cast members and celebrities, and it was held at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which I've been to an event at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. It was amazing.
I want to go. I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I love that exists. I think that's what's available now on Disney Plus, that special.
I see.
And Thora said that she had a great time at the anniversary. And she said it also triggered a midlife crisis for her. So that was cool. This kid, I love this kid. She's older than me, but I love this kid. I think she's awesome.
Yeah.
To kind of sum it all up for you, Thora also touched on how the film is now a Halloween staple. And I wanted to leave you with this quote from her.
All right.
You've read the others. I'll let you read it.
Okay. Yeah, I believe this. All right, here we go. It's basically candy corn at this point. Like, it's a must-have. Even if you don't like candy corn, doesn't matter. You're eating that shit on Halloween.
I love it. Yeah, that's how she described it, and I think that's...
You're eating that shit on Halloween.
We're always going to eat that shit on Halloween.
Every Halloween.
It just doesn't matter. It means too much to us to leave it out of our Halloween celebrations.
Absolutely.
So that's Hocus Pocus.
Oh my God, that's Hocus Pocus. That's Halloween 2022.
Oh, listener, thank you for being with us. It is time for you to fully indulge Halloween. Even if you're listening, it's already over.
Maximum Halloween.
Make sure that you do the trick-or-treating thing if you've got kids, if you want to.
Yeah.
Watch your movies. Watch your Halloween sitcom episodes. There's been a lot of conversation on the internet lately about 90s Halloween sitcom episodes, which are just simply the best. They don't make them better. A couple of Home Improvements are really fun.
Love Home
Ryder Strong cameos in one of them. And in another Home Improvement Halloween special, there's a moment when kids knock on the door trick-or-treating and they're dressed as Buzz and Simba.
Oh my God.
Which Tim Allen and Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of 90s Halloween goodness. There's a Full House episode about the legend of Cropsy.
Oh, wow.
Which in their episode, it was just a mud man in the woods, but...
Sure. Wow, they used Cropsy. That's insane.
They used the word Cropsy with the name.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of really fun 90s Halloween content, even if it isn't just Hocus Pocus. So make sure that you get it all in there.
So much goodness out there, guys.
And
wow.
Be kind to the witches and black cats in your life.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Absolutely.
Please and thank you, because they deserve your respect.
More than you know.
That's my PSA for this Halloween season.
Be kind to the witches and the black cats. Mm-hmm. They've endured enough.
Have they not endured enough?
In the history of our existence as humans.
Thank you.
Wow. I don't even want to say goodbye.
I don't either. It's kind of sad, right? Halloween 2022.
Well, it's just until a couple weeks from now.
Yep.
But
in a couple weeks, we'll be back to a normal schedule.
But we're keeping it spooky, because you know what we do. We keep it spooky all year long.
Because it's pretty dark around here.
Pretty dark in these parts. Whew. Wow. Well, happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Merry Halloween, jolly Halloween.
We appreciate you.
We'd love to see what you guys do for Halloween this year.
Yeah, send us your pictures, your costumes. Yeah. If you dress up in any 90s costumes or anything that we've covered on the show,
that'd be dope.
That would be amazing. We can post it on our stories or something. Even if it's after Halloween. Obviously, we know you're hearing this at the last minute, so
yeah,
we'll keep it going.
We will share your stuff. Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Don't give out poison candy.
Don't give out poison candy.
Don't put razor blades in any of the apples.
Check your candy.
Check your candy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good PSA. Well, as always, thanks for listening, everybody. It's been a great October.
It has.
It's been a kick-ass Halloween.
We've learned so much.
We've learned a lot of history. We've learned a lot of things. And we can't wait to keep doing it.
That's right.
Thanks, guys. Keep it spooky out there, all you pretty darklings.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Thanks for listening to That's Pretty Dark, written and produced by Christian Baxter Mott and Kaylin Andrews.
Our music is composed by Jonathan Simmons, and our art is provided by Paige Garland at Power Girl Illustration.
Join the collective nostalgia and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at That's Pretty Dark Podcast.
Share your experiences and let us know what shows, films, or villains still haunt you from childhood at that'sprettydarkpodcast@gmail.com. Remember, you're never really alone.
So, until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.